I was visiting my family in Iran with my 2-year-old baby.
My father was arrested for defending basic democratic values.
My son was defending human rights in Egypt.
I was visiting my elderly mother in Tehran.
My friend was standing up for labor rights in Iran.
As British citizens, we would expect our government to stand by their values.
I was wrongfully convicted and sentenced to 5 years in prison. I think it took me a very, very long time to accept that actually this is serious. Part of the reason was I had a young child and I didn't want to accept that any government could do that to any mother and a child and to separate them from each other. But I was wrong. And I was a political pawn. And they eventually kept a promise. They did not let me go until they got what they wanted.
For the first 2 years, the UK government advised my family not to publicize my case. The lack of action led to the fact that I had to live in that circle of her for 4 years and 7 months.
When Alaa was not released, I realized that Alaa could be in jail forever, and that it would take a crisis to get him out. So I decided to precipitate the crisis.
What we're currently facing is my father, who's 77-year-old, and he might very well die in jail. He's been in solitary confinement for more than 4 years now.
They had no clear answer to my question, why Mehran, after the release of Anoosheh and Nazanin Zaghari, why Mehran left behind.
In my father's case, and I believe in the case of many others, it does feel like you're fighting on two fronts.
This shouldn't have needed my hunger strike for the British government to move decisively on it.
I feel like they don't recognize Mehran as a genuine British citizen.
It was quite heartbreaking that that they won the first score for his release.
One of the unforgettable times that I was at the verge of losing hope was during the COVID, where I was begging and I was sending voice messages to Boris Johnson to do something about it. And we were not getting any response. He didn't spend 5 minutes to give my family a call.
I think that failure to acknowledge the violation of her rights was really problematic. So they didn't call for her release on any grounds for 18 months. Very wary of letting us meet the Foreign Secretary. That took 18 months, and him making a mistake in Parliament that then meant he had to meet with us.
If we look at what Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe was doing, she was simply teaching people journalism, as I understand it.
They also refused to attend her trial. And I always felt, given that we'd been given diplomatic protection, I always felt there was a real betrayal. My honest experience was that things only changed when we had enough pressure and we pushed the government and when lots of people helped us.
Finally taken real action with the call between Mr. Starmer and Mr. Sisi. I hope it won't take my being a death door again for the actual release to happen.
Because of the inaction by the UK government, the pressure was really high on my wife, on my kids, to the extent that it affected them both materially and psychologically.
The turmoil that my child has gone through is one of the things that I don't think I would ever be able to forgive.
Because I'm advocating for my father, I can't go back to Hong Kong because I might get arrested. So I haven't seen my father since the end of 2020.
What I would like to say to the UK government is when a person is arrested, that person's life matters.
Think of your citizens as your own family members.
Don't leave people behind because they don't have anyone to put pressure on you.
You need to realize that if we don't speak out quickly, if we don't speak out strongly, then it sends the wrong message to these autocratic states.
And I think Also, the government needs to stop suppressing these cases.
It is a government that claims to uphold the rule of law and to uphold human rights. It should act as if violations of the rule of law, of which British people holding a British nationality are victims, is a crisis from day one.
Right now, the UK government has no clear strategy in place for supporting the British nationals who are arbitrarily detained abroad.
The government does not have to call for your release.
They do not have to attend your trial.
They don't even have to explain to family members what they're doing to bring our loved ones home.
A strategy would mean that the government would be held accountable for its failures.
No families should feel like they're fighting alone.
The government needs to assure Alaa's, Meron's and Jimmy's release.